Like always, Castlevania ended with yet another agonizing cliffhanger, and once again it was Tera on the noose of a much more sinister character pulling the strings. When this spin-off show first aired, Tera was among our favorite characters, given that she was always the voice of reason and almost like a foster mother to Richter Belmont. But after she was forced to sacrifice her life to save her daughter, Maria, from a dark fate, it was honestly sad to watch Tera morally struggle as a vampire. She even begins to wrongly influence Maria and leaves to find herself after realizing what she had done. At the end of Season 2, we see a different aura of Tera as a vampire with an evil dark shadow of Old Man Coyote or Mephistopheles lurking in the back. While this cliffhanger definitely gives away the fact that Tera might become the next big villain of the show, it has led many Castlevania enthusiasts to believe that her character might go on to adapt Shaft's storyline from the gaming lore. So, who is this Shaft in the Castlevania games, and how is it possible for Tera to become this character's stand-in within the show? Before we answer that question, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Now, without wasting another moment, let's dive in. Tera's fate in Castlevania Nocturne. So, Tera was initially part of a speaker group that settled in Russia before they were hunted down by the forces of Erzsébet Bathory. Somehow, Tera escaped, and after the attack, she ventured inside Bathory's dungeon, trying to rescue her family. But it was already too late, as most of her family had been tortured and killed, while her younger sister had been turned into a vampire. Tera didn't want her sister to suffer the fate of such a curse and mercifully killed her before fleeing at Bathory's arrival. Tera then fled west, eventually settling down in France, where the local abbot helped her adjust in the commune of Machecoul, and the two secretly began a relationship. Together, they had a girl whom they named Maria, but because of the abbot's vows to the church, Tera had to keep the identity of her child's father a secret both from society and her own daughter. In Season 1 of Castlevania Nocturne, we first meet Tera while she was listening to Maria's opinion of Emmanuel, the abbot. Maria notes how Emmanuel is suspicious of the revolutionaries. However, Tera defends Emmanuel's nature and indirectly sides with his opinion concerning the revolutionaries. Soon, they hear shrieks from the night creatures outside, and before they can gather themselves, all of them were ambushed by an entire horde. Richter, Maria, and Tera all fought against them until Annette and Edward arrived to assist them and turn the tides in their favor. Once the remaining night creatures had retreated, Tera listened alongside Maria and Richter to Annette's deduction that the creatures were created by a forge master. They then introduced themselves to the group and told Tera whatever they knew about a certain vampire messiah. Now, on the morning after the night creatures attacked her house, Maria buries her familiar, who died fighting the night creatures, and Tera comforts her with a hug. Later, as Maria chats with Annette about organizing a meeting with the other revolutionaries, Tera was shocked to hear that the vampire messiah was a female and almost gasped when she learned her name was Erzsébet Bathory. The revelation caused Tera to anxiously run away, leaving the group confused as to why. Eventually, when the group catches up to Tera, she stood by a small stream of water and disclosed why she fled from Russia in the past. Tera even apologizes for not speaking about it sooner, but Richter consoles her by stating how he does not talk about certain things as well. She then warns the group about Erzsébet's plans of destruction and chaos, although both Annette and Richter assure her that they would successfully kill Erzsébet before the wannabe messiah could do any further harm. Around dusk, when Annette suggested launching an attack at the Vendée, where the Marquis was scheduled to hold a party with his vampire brethren, Tera fiercely opposed it, as it was also the dead of night. But Annette was adamant, and when Richter sided with Annette, everyone else volunteered to come along. But when Tera offered to help, Richter insisted she stay back and rest, assuring her that they would be just fine on their own. Sadly, things don't go according to plan as the vampires cornered Richter and his team, and they end up losing Edward to the monsters. The next day, Tera consoles a distraught Annette by stating that Edward knew the risks of the mission when he decided to go for it. Eventually, as the days pass, Maria starts a debate inside Tera's house one fine morning about how there's a forge master affiliated with the abbot and how they should proceed. Ultimately, Tera proposed that she knew about a secret passageway which would take them all inside the abbey. Afterwards, at a walkway in Machecoul, Tera pulls a hidden switch, allowing Richter and the rest of the group to enter the secret passage into the abbey. Until they reach a dead end, Tera warns the group about what they'll witness there and hits a switch on the wall, revealing a doorway. Once they go past the doorway, the group is attacked by a horde of night creatures, and as they progress forward, Tera is shocked to see that Abbot Emmanuel is actually affiliated with the vampires. Soon, a fight ensues, and while continuing her fight against the night creatures, Tera casts a fire spell against Drolta in order to rescue Maria from her grasp. Once the night creatures have been dealt with, an astonished Tera asks Emmanuel what he has done. And in his defense, Emmanuel claims that the kingdom of God was under attack by the godless revolutionaries, so he was doing what he could in order to protect it. As Richter rebuked Emmanuel's reasoning, Olrox appeared, causing Richter to freeze up in trauma and leave the scene with Tera, Maria, and Annette following behind. After they exit the passageway, Tera could not see Richter anywhere. Now, after going back to the house, Tera explains to Annette that the cloth she was using to sterilize Maria's wound was tree willow bark, but when Tera examines Maria's wound, she notes how it's deeper than she first thought. This is when Annette helps out by stitching up Maria's wound with the help of her magic, as Tera watches in awe. Later that night, a noise from below alerts Maria and Tera, and they learn that Annette was intending to leave in order to take action herself. Even though Maria and Tera attempt to dissuade her, they fail, as Annette leaves. The following afternoon, when Tera was checking the healing process of Maria's wound, a knock at the door startled her. After seeing that it was Abbot Emmanuel, Tera tried to close the door on him, but he insisted on talking to her and Maria. When Tera reluctantly allows it, Emmanuel reveals his main motive for aligning with the vampires and ultimately gives away the truth of being Maria's father. Of course, this revelation leaves Maria distraught, and she abruptly leaves, making Tera glare at Emmanuel for giving away the truth at such an insensitive hour. Later, by a brook, Tera tries to reason with Maria about withholding the information of her real father from her. Eventually, as they head home after making up, Tera and Maria are ambushed by a group of vampires led by the Marchiones. As Tera and Maria defeat the group of vampires, Richter appears right on time to defeat the Marchiones with his newly reawakened magical powers after his rendezvous with his long-lost grandfather, Juste Belmont. After returning home, Richter proposes that they should formulate a plan on how to launch a sneak attack on the Abbey and take down the Abbot's entire operation. This is when Tera notes how the Forge Master uses a special item to create night creatures, so in order to stop him, they would need to find it. At that moment, Olrox appears as a black cloud of mist and drops a tome or a magic book on Tera's table, mentioning that the Abbot has a special machine to forge night creatures. When Tera peruses the book, she confirms that whatever Olrox told them was true. After decoding the book, Tera figures out a way to send the machine back to hell, and just then, Mizrak knocks at her door to reveal that Emmanuel had kidnapped Maria. Later, as they rush to the Abbey, Richter, Tera, and Annette witness the sun being engulfed in an eclipse. When the Templars confront them, despite Mizrak trying to reason with them, they're all forced to fight until they reach the Abbey. Upon reaching the mantle of the Abbey, Tera stops Emmanuel from performing the sacrifice on Maria. Emmanuel claims the ritual to be a necessity as he needed a ram to sacrifice. Of course, an enraged Tera tries her best to save her daughter. She briefly fights against the night creatures and then reads the tome to open up a portal into hell that would allow Annette to push the infernal machine through. However, this fails because of Erzsébet's untimely arrival at the Abbey. Despite Tera pleading with the Abbot to fight against the Messiah, he couldn't get himself to do it. Erzsébet then chastises Maria, Tera, Richter, and Emmanuel before boasting about her prior commitments given to her involving virgin sacrifices. The vampire queen then reveals that she never intended to kill Maria. Instead, she hoped to turn her into a vampire. This is when Tera offers herself as a sacrifice instead of Maria and tempts Erzsébet with the fact that she was a speaker, meaning she would become a very powerful vampire. Erzsébet then recalls Tera from long ago and her conquests in Russia and asks Emmanuel if she loved Tera. When he anxiously confirmed, Erzsébet accepted Tera's sacrifice before letting Maria go. As Richter picks up Maria and starts running to safety alongside Annette, Erzsébet bites into Tera's neck. After feeding off of her, Erzsébet then gives Tera her own blood as Emmanuel watches the whole scene unfold in complete shock. In Nocturne Season 2, the recently transformed Tera exits the Vendee and, following Erzsébet's command, she casts a fire spell only to fire it off into her master's face. In retaliation, Erzsébet drags Tera into the sunlight, but she again protects herself by casting an ice spell to shield her from the sunlight. Still unfazed, Erzsébet orders Tera to relay a message to Abbot Emmanuel, commanding him to meet with her. Given that it was broad daylight, Tera mentioned that she didn't know if her magic would last long enough to protect her from the sun, as Mashakul is a long distance from there, but it really didn't matter to Erzsébet. She just wanted her needs to be met. Hence, Tera casts an ice spell to protect herself and heads to the Abbey, where Emmanuel hesitantly approaches her. After making an off-the-cuff remark, she informed him that Erzsébet had summoned his presence. This led Emmanuel to ask if Tera also saw Erzsébet as the Messiah like the rest of the vampires, but she doesn't respond. When he again asked what Erzsébet wanted, Tera simply stated that she demanded an audience with him. Now, as Tera was preparing to leave, Emmanuel asked her if she still loved Maria. This caused Tera to lash out, and not in a human way, which terrified Emmanuel, who insisted she stay away from Maria or else her sacrifice would be for nothing. In response, Tera only rebukes the remark and leaves. Later, during a conversation between Richter and a despondent Maria, Richter tries to have a heart-to-heart with Maria, noting that she should accept that her mother is dead. However, this attempt to close the rift between them only widens it, as Maria loathes Richter's suggestion that he misses her mother as much as she does. Meanwhile, Tera reaches a safe area to rest and is joined by Olrox, who welcomes her to the immortal life. As they talk, Tera confesses that she had no intention of returning to Erzsébet. Olrox then mentioned that she was only following her heart and had not yet fed, before directing her attention to a nearby drunkard. This causes Tera to finally succumb to her vampirical instincts and feed on the drunkard. Later, with blood trickling from her mouth, we see Tera watch from afar as Maria joins the revolutionary army in the distance. As time passes on, Tera tries to make contact with Maria while lurking in the shadows. Even though everyone else opposes the idea, Maria is glad to see her mother once more. Soon, Tera begins to influence her and pushes Maria to embrace the darkness in her powers. Even though she knew Maria was not strong enough to control the kind of creatures she summoned from the other world, Tera kept pushing her. When Just tried to stop Tera, they even started to fight as he wanted to protect Maria and saw Tera as a vampire that must be killed. After a brief scuffle, Tera pins Just to the ground and was about to feed on him, but she regained her senses and pulled herself away. Just and Tera then talked about what Tera was teaching Maria, but by the time they had finished arguing, Maria had already vanished. Tera then begged Just to stop Maria from killing her father, as she blamed the abbot for everything that happened. So, Just went down to the abbey and begged Maria not to kill Emmanuel. He pleaded that Tera had sent him as he did not want her to do anything she would later regret. In fact, he even mentioned that Maria shouldn't let stupid old men dictate her life choices, but Maria didn't want to hear anything, and Just simply watched in horror as Maria summoned a black dragon to kill the abbot. Now, after Maria killed her father, she was no longer strong enough to control the dragon, who was now attacking her. Luckily, Tera arrived just in time and pierced the dragon's snout with an icicle spear, causing it to back down and return to the abyss. Later, in the woods, Tera insists Just keep an eye out for Maria and says her goodbyes to her daughter. When Maria begged her mother not to abandon her, Tera mentioned that she would only make things worse if she stayed back. Moreover, both of them needed to figure themselves out, and Tera needed to understand this new vampiric version of herself before she could be a part of Maria's life again. We don't see much of Tera again until the end, when she witnesses the public execution of a vampire sympathizer, and the season ends with what we think is the devil lurking in her shadow, possibly corrupting her. Now that you have a rough idea of Tera's character from the Castlevania Nocturne spin-off, let's take a look at Shaft's lore in the Castlevania games. So, Shaft is a dark priest and a loyal servant of Count Dracula. He was first introduced into the series in Castlevania Rondo of Blood, and reappeared again in Castlevania Symphony of Night, serving as the secondary antagonist of both games. Basically, Shaft is a corrupted clergyman with immense dark powers, as he's the leader of a secret cult of worshippers of evil and is one of Count Dracula's highest-ranking vassals. This dude fanatically worked to resurrect Dracula, as he thought that the Dark Lord would be able to purify the world. Apart from being cold, calculating, and courteous, Shaft is also malevolent, imperturbable, and obsessed. He delusionally regards Dracula as the ultimate savior who will cleanse the world to bring perfection, and loathes harmony or wielders of holy powers. From his warped view, desire and sin stem from peace and order, and it is the believers of the scriptures who enable such corruption. For Shaft, only Dracula's uncompromising evil is preferable to the depravity of humanity. Other than that, as a character, Shaft is highly intelligent, clever, and crafty. He hacks through proxies and scapegoats, or devises smokescreens and false tricks so as to divert suspicion, making it appear like he was taken down so he could work unnoticed and undisturbed. In the games, he usually tries to remove any threats before they can strike, or if possible, he also tries to use them for his own gain. Shaft does not particularly hesitate to escape when the situation gets out of hand, as he chooses to wait for a more opportune situation. This does not mean he's a coward, as Shaft faces his enemies without fear when being challenged, even if he's not above wearing them down with summons beforehand. Finally, dying does not disturb him, as his goal was achieved because he cares a lot more about his demented mission than any other personal gain. Now, in Castlevania Rondo of Blood, specifically in the year 1792, Shaft resurrected Count Dracula and helped him in his plans to kidnap several young girls, including Maria Renard and Annette. in order to provide his master with a bride. During this time, Richter Belmont encountered him at least once in his adventures, and Shaft was ultimately defeated after conjuring several monsters previously fought by Simon Belmont. Exclusively in Castlevania The Dracula X Chronicles, Shaft's final fate depends on the protagonist's actions. If Richter or Maria fails to rescue Annette, she takes the place of Shaft's ghost as the boss of Stage 7, and Shaft's ghost survives, arriving before Dracula is killed and protecting him long enough for him to escape. If Annette was rescued, then Shaft's ghost is properly fought and destroyed. After his defeat, Shaft would come to exist only as a spirit transferred and kept in a crystal ball. Later, during the events of Symphony of Night, which was set in 1797, Shaft kidnapped Richter Belmont and brainwashed him after knowing no one could defeat him because he was the strongest of all vampire hunters. Shaft was also instrumental in using his evil powers to control Richter, turning him against anyone who would seek to defy the Count. Eventually, Maria guessed that Richter was under supernatural coercion and helped Alucard see past Shaft's deceptions. Ultimately, Alucard was able to save Richter instead of killing him and put an end to the Dark Priest's ambitions. However, Shaft, knowing he ultimately succeeded in his goal of resurrecting Dracula, was content, even after Alucard tracked him down to the Reverse Castle and defeated him.
You'll never control it if you fear it.
Why do we think Tera's character could adapt Shaft's storyline in Castlevania Nocturne Season 3? Before we target this particular question, we just want to remind you guys that Dracula might still be alive in the Castlevania Nocturne timeline. At the end of the OG Castlevania series, we saw that both Dracula and Lisa received their happy ending on the mortal plane. While the spin-off series has not addressed that particular open ending yet, we know that Nocturne is a rough adaptation of Richter Belmont's conquests from Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night. Even if the show's storyline may not exactly align with the gaming lore, there are still a few common elements when it comes to characters. And after seeing the ending of Castlevania Nocturne, all we can say is Tera's ending was downright depressing. When the devil was gripping onto her shoulder and smiling, we knew her character was cooked. This final cutscene pretty much means that Old Man Coyote is probably manipulating Tera. Just like Drolta, who became the embodiment of evil after the world was cruel to her, we think Tera will also go over the edge for that same reason. Even if she has not inherently succumbed to it yet, Season 2 gave us a good glimpse of how Tera was at the teeming edge after her transformation into a vampire. Considering how she passively manipulated Maria into killing her father, and then devilishly smiled at his demise, it was really all the evidence we needed to understand that she was at the brink of losing the remaining shreds of her humanity. And that makes us really sad because she was one of our favorite characters from the very beginning. Even at the end, before we saw the sinister shadow of Old Man Coyote behind her, Tera's eyes had a glimmering darkness in them, especially after she saw that Maria was supporting the execution of a human being because he was a vampire sympathizer. Maria is also in a very dark place now after losing her family to the vampires, so with Old Man Coyote pulling the strings, we can see a mother-daughter rift approaching in Season 3. Also, from what we can find on the internet, the Native Americans have often spoken about a mythical folk hero and trickster called Old Man Coyote. All the stories related to him usually warn people to not be thoughtless, boastful, or pompous. Given how Maria is pretty shaky now and is still finding out how to properly harness her powers, it is possible that Old Man Coyote is going to use Tera as a pawn in his elaborate schemes. Just like Death was in Castlevania, this new mysterious shadow can be the personification of chaos itself. More importantly, we know he originates from Hell and is a version of Mephistopheles, who's famous for making deals in exchange for souls. This is exactly what he did with the abbot and pretty much pulled him down to hell after Maria killed him. This definitely means that Old Man Coyote is here to drag some souls down to hell, and given that Tera is now an immensely powerful vampire with magical abilities, he could use her to get to Maria and Richter. This would naturally make Tera the next big bad villain of the show. As they talk, Tera confesses that she had no intention of returning to Erzsébet. At first, I thought that with Erzsébet gone, she would be able to control her vampiric instincts. However, with this seemingly malevolent entity's hand on her shoulder, we think she might just embrace the curse of her vampirism and give in to her urges, thereby forcing Maria to tackle some very complex emotions. We're low-key scared about what's to come because Maria is also capable of doing some crazy shit with her magic now, as that black dragon proved, and if Tera manages to corrupt her, the result would be absolutely diabolical. Just like the gaming lore in Symphony of the Night, it is possible that Old Man Coyote will corrupt Tera into becoming his high priestess and motivate her to bring back Dracula to the scene in order to propagate much more chaos and murder, which would let him drag more souls down to hell. The most important narrative in Symphony of the Night is Richter getting abducted and brainwashed by Shaft. Given how close Tera and Richter are in the show, it's possible that she could manipulate him in a similar way and drag both Maria and Richter in her schemes to further more suffering. This would leave Alucard, Just, and Maria to weather the storm by themselves and bring Richter and Maria back to their senses. Just like the pattern of the OG Castlevania, it would be too far-fetched of an idea to expect a final battle between Alucard and Dracula, once again followed by an ultimate Belmont-style showdown between Richter and Old Man Coyote. In between all of this, it is possible that, just like Saint Germain from Castlevania, Tera would realize how far she's gone and end up sacrificing herself so that the good could emerge victorious. Although there is also another speculation which involves Dracula making a comeback to help Alucard fight Mephistopheles after he has used Tera to brainwash Maria and Richter. Some Reddit threads even talk about Lisa being turned by Dracula so they can spend an eternity together. So that would mean the entire family would be reunited and we will get a cathartic ending with an ultimate showdown with the devil. Either way, it still seems Tera will end up being the devil's pawn and lose her life at the end trying to redeem herself one last time. Theories, theories, theories. Just boundless theories at this point. But we really hope the writers do justice to Tera's character. God knows how much she's suffered in both seasons of Nocturne. Anyways, that's our 2 cents on the theory behind Tera replacing Shaft's storyline for Season 3 of Castlevania Nocturne. But we want to hear your take in the comments down below. Let us know your thoughts and theories, whether you think it's plausible, and what other Castlevania characters you want to hear us talk about. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.